All right,
So if you can
perfect.
see that. Yeah. So that's my first and
This was
second
after
test.
6 days. Okay, so this was after 6 days, which is
And this was
significant.
at 30 grams. Yeah. And I could do probably longer if you want to, like the first test and then maybe a month later.
Yeah,
Um,
because the tissue is going to move a lot slower than like blood or urine. Because
okay.
you can do put a chelator in, and your urine levels are going to be completely different because you've just pulled stuff out. With the tissue, it takes a little longer. That's why these are smaller movements, but you're still getting movement. So let's just quickly look at this. If
I
you want to scroll,
actually I was quick and I actually got the new one. So
okay,
I'm getting it down. Um,
perfect.
so that was,
Yeah, and for everyone listening, I haven't looked at any of these tests, so this is all real time. The
read.
moment of truth. The moment of truth is the zero charge working or not?
Yeah, I'm really obsessed with the Oligoscan. It's just such a cool
Yeah,
at-home thing to. There we go. Can you see that one? So,
perfect. Okay, so this is over, 4 to 5 weeks.
mhm.
All right. So first I like to start with the metals. So if we can just go down to the metals, because then it makes the minerals make more sense.
Okay.
Okay. So this was when you started to a month later. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Hmm.
So the baseline level here is the gray. If people can see, the top line is gray. That was the initial test. And then 4 to 5 weeks later, you have the colored line. And you can see that in most of the metals, the colored line, which was the retest, was higher, indicating that the body is pushing out metals from level 3 deep storage into level 2 general tissue. So that's actually exactly what you want to see, because it's indicating that this is offering a full body detox, right? Metals are coming out of the organs, wherever they're stored, and they're coming into general tissue. So what's interesting is the body does tend to group certain metals together. So a lot of times it'll group, for example, gadolinium with aluminum, which is what we're seeing here. So 13 of the metals, if I'm just glancing at this quickly, 13 of the metals increased. So you had a dump. The metals were from organs. You had metals release, body releasing 13 metals, but there was a decrease in aluminum and a decrease in gadolinium. So that, and the body does tend to group things together. It's very interesting. And I think a lot of times it's what's in the brain, right? So gadolinium and aluminum. So very interesting.
Interesting.
Okay. If you do look at the percentages, we could do it really quick. I'm just kind of curious to see like what percentage increase this is. So we'll take like lead, let's do cadmium. So we do 775 divided by 1102. So that's a 29%, 29.7% increase in the tissue. So it's way more significant when you actually do the percentages, because sometimes it doesn't look that good from the screen. But you've dumped 20, and this is not total body burden. It's not like, oh, you just got rid of 30% of the cadmium in your body. No, it's you've increased your tissue level by 30%. So maybe for you, you have a tolerance of like kind of a 30% window of how much your body can handle. And then, as we're going to see from hopefully from the other tests, the cycling effect, where it doesn't just go up in a straight line, it goes up, down, up, down. So
That's what I've noticed. Yep.
let's do the lead. So let's do 764. Oh, where'd it go? 1047. So that's 28% increase, right? So
Wow.
very similar. So we'll do silver, 994.
Yeah. So you're right. It was kind of in that 20 to 30%.
Yep. So that, and that's very fast. So, and that's
Okay.
good. And you can, let's just do arsenic, because a lot of times arsenic isn't as fast, honestly. And I don't know. I think there might be more arsenic in people than this test leads us to believe. That's 19%. So yeah, you're kind of in the 20% range, and which is good. That's way above average. But it's interesting that the body will release these metals at its own pace. So it's not that the zero charge went in and individually grabbed each one of these metals and brought it to tissue. It's that it reduced the stress load in level one. There was room, and the body says, now I'm going to release 13 of these metals from organs into tissue at a pretty good pace, honestly. And then gadolinium is on the cleanup phase. So what I think is happening is right now, gadolinium and aluminum are leaving your body, and the other 13 metals are leaving organs and going into general tissue, but they're
Wow.
not necessarily leaving your body. So if you did a urine test and there was a doctor, Raymond Flamp, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, Dr. Raymond from the Netherlands, and he talked about doing a lot of testing with Oligoscan and urine chelation. And like when the mercury levels would go up on this test, they wouldn't show up on the urine. And then when they went down on this test, they showed up in the urine. And that just supports my theory that when the levels go up on the oligoscan, they're coming out of organs into tissue, but they're not yet leaving the body. But then when they drop, that's when they're leaving the body, going from levels 2 to 1. So that just supports my theory. Really cool. All right, let's go. Let's just quickly look at your minerals just to see what was going
Yeah.
on. So you had a really good dump of metals. So you know that the product's working. There was metals in organs to be detoxed. So that was the first thing we learned. The product was working. And the minerals, not a lot going on. There was some, it looks like they were negatively affected to some capacity, right? Not huge, but your chromium decreased, manganese, silicone a little bit. So nothing huge. But we'll also see hopefully that these start kind of rebounding as the body goes through these phases as well. But sometimes there's going to be a little irritation. And maybe there was a little bit of stress that occurred from the detox, especially if some of these were lodged in there. Maybe some of them, we don't really know if these were moving already on their own from your other protocol or not. That's kind of the unknown. Yeah. It's not like you've never been detoxing the whole time. But chromium, sometimes when you have low chromium, it can also be a sign of like your body's using up extra glutathione because they're kind of similar. So sometimes there could just be detox going on there. All right, let's go to your vitamins really quick, then we'll move to the next test. Vitamins were kind of same thing, just slightly decreased. So maybe there was a little bit of stress added to your body during the process, but for getting, you weren't feeling worse, right? Where you weren't, yeah.
I was
So you
feeling
weren't,
better. Yeah.
it was kind of the subclinical level. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like if you're feeling it, you're definitely having, stress in the body. A lot of people, even if their levels slightly decrease, it's not necessarily a bad thing because we're looking at tissue, not blood. So as long as it's not tanking your vitamins and minerals to the point where it's pulling from the blood and messing up homeostasis, it's okay. I think it's kind of a buffer. These are kind of like a reserve to some capacity for your blood. So the more the better, but they can drop down without negatively affecting you at all as long as they rebound. So that's the way I look at it. All right, let's move on to the next one. So far, so good.
Sure. So which time frame should we look at next? Because I have basically I have from like late July to end of August.
Let's do where this one ended.
Okay.
To like a month after or a few weeks after that.
Okay. So this one ended. I have to go back and see.
6/11.
Oh, 6/11. Okay. Yeah, and then I have one July 2nd.
Perfect.
Was the next
so
one.
We'll do 3 weeks after.
Okay.
And this is where it's going to get interesting. Yeah, and if you're going to post this on YouTube, I encourage people just to check out your YouTube channel and actually see it because I'm sure it's going to make a lot more sense.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, here, let me pull this one up.
But just to recap for people when you're pulling it up of what happened there. So we saw that on the metal levels, the levels went up on 13 out of the 15 metals, indicating that the body was pushing out metals from organs into general tissue. And that did cause what appeared to be a slight disturbance of the vitamins and minerals, very small, but a slight, not to the point where it would actually cause a negative impact on the body, but just the stress of the detox moved things around a little bit, but not causing any symptoms, so nothing to worry about. But overall, about 20% increase across the board of these metals in tissue, which is pretty good. All right.
Yeah.
So now we're looking at this was what, June 11th till July 2nd. All right.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So 3 weeks later, now what we're looking at is 12 or 13 of the metals going down and a couple of them going up. So it's inverted.
Interesting.
So not necessarily because you're aluminum and gadolinium, not as much as sometimes. And it's all based on when you take it too. So like this, if you did it every day and like we could, it's interesting. But now the point of this is like your lead is down. Let's just do the percentage real quick. 669. What does that say? 1047. Thanks for highlighting it. 37%, 36%.
Wow, that's huge.
Your lead decreased. So it went up 29% or 30% the first time. Now it's down 37%. So it kind of shows you there's this like window. So probably you have 15 to 20% in both directions in your general tissue of what your body wants to keep. And then it just processes things from there. So the lead went up, indicating out of organs into tissue. Now it's coming back down just below baseline, showing that now it's leaving the body. Same thing with cadmium, it's coming down. That's probably only like 15% or so. And a lot of them aren't coming down that much. A lot of them ended up basically where they started, which is interesting because that's what happens. So I think there's just that general level in tissue that the body's comfortable with. When the level rises, it doesn't just keep rising forever because there would just be too much in tissue. It goes in phases. I call it
Okay.
cycles of detox. So levels go out of organs to tissue, and then the body goes on a cleanup phase. So that's like the dump phase. And then there's a cleanup phase. And that's why a lot of these metals look like they're basically at the same levels where they started because they're back at baseline. It doesn't mean nothing happened. If you would have just tested initially and then now, it would be kind of disappointing because you
Sure.
would say nothing really happened. All these metals are down a little bit. You'd be like, yeah, lead's down, cadmium's down, nothing else moved. But since we had that in between snapshot, we saw that in between, your body had a big dump of metals. And now it's kind of resetting itself, preparing for the next, whatever's going to happen on the next test. But let's go to the minerals to see what happened on the cleanup phase.
Yeah. And quick question. I
Yeah.
interviewed Jeff Lyon Jr. About the Oligoscan. It was a really fun interview. And I think he was saying when things are high plus, that's like when you, that's pretty high, right? Like, I mean, I guess excess is like really red flag, but most people I've measured have aluminum in the high plus range. It's really interesting.
Yeah. So, and I think there's just a different threshold for what each person can handle in
Mhm.
general tissue. So some of the heavier people are going to have higher levels, but I think that's because they have more fat to handle it. And then someone that's healthier might actually have higher levels because they have more of a threshold. So it's more than just high and low. Um, and that's why a lot of people say, I want aluminum to go to zero. I want all these metals to go to zero. But your baseline, I don't think your metals are ever going to get below this level. Because you can see here, like your thorium to the fifth decimal point, to the fourth decimal point, it's the same.
Yeah.
Same with thallium. I mean, like a
Yeah.
lot of these metals, they were traced to almost the exact level. It shows you the reproducibility of the test for one,
Yeah.
that these
Mhm.
levels were traced to almost exactly the same level. And it just shows you the innate intelligence of the body that there's just a very specific amount it can handle. So what I think, my theory is that that level, kind of that baseline that it always goes back to, is not affecting you negatively. Like that's the level in your general tissue that your body basically doesn't care about because it's not in organs, it's under the threshold, and it's just okay. So once you get everything out of organs eventually, I don't think these are ever going to go to zero. That's why the retesting is so important because you're seeing the movement. Because as long as you're getting movement, you're seeing things coming out of organs. If everything's just stuck forever, either you have everything out of organs or you're not detoxing. But yeah, I don't think like
Makes
your
sense.
thallium, thorium, gadolinium are ever going to get lower than this because
And platinum
I don't think it's
potentially.
negatively affecting you. Yeah. Now,
Okay.
aluminum is super high, but every single person I've ever tested and anyone I've talked to that owns this device, no one has ever had an aluminum in the green.
Wow.
So what it's either the reference range is an issue or everyone is completely messed up with aluminum. Both are possibilities. Um, but yeah, it's one of those things that just take that for what it is. No one's ever had a green aluminum out of anyone I've ever talked to.
Makes me feel better.
Yeah, yeah, it's not you. Okay. And now we see the minerals are rebounding, right? So they're actually going back to balance. So you had a slight disturbance in minerals after the first few weeks when you were dumping metals, but now you're on this cleanup phase and the minerals are rebounding. So the minerals also cycle, just like the metals cycle, the minerals do. And it's just, I think the body's way to continually detox without being stressed out. It just goes back to like in a chelation protocol, the minerals are probably just going to get worse, 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 and worse. But in this, it's like because your body is indicating the pace at which it detoxes, it's letting metals go. That becomes a little stressful. It says, okay, let's stop, let's clean it up, and then the minerals balance. So there's no net loss in minerals. So it's actually incredible. And I think you might actually have ended up better than you started on some of these. Like I think maybe the zinc is better. Looks like the phosphorus might be better, maybe even the magnesium. Um, so kind of interesting. But
Yeah.
you could compare like your first test to this test too to see that
Yep.
if
Mhm.
you want to. But let's go to the vitamins quickly because I'm assuming those bounced back a little bit. Yeah, so they did. Every single vitamin is up pretty significantly.
Wow.
So why don't you go to the first test to this test?
Okay.
Because I'd just be interested to see like, are your vitamins and minerals exactly the same as when they started, or are they a little bit better? So if you can detox heavy metals, which you're doing here, if you can do that without having messed up vitamins and minerals, that's absolutely incredible. Like in the
Yeah.
short term. I mean, most
Yeah.
people say that's not even possible, right? So yeah, is this the one?
I'm
Oh,
working
you're
on it.
working on it. You're
So
working on it. Okay.
yeah, so from the first test to the July 2nd, I'll do
Yeah.
that. So uh,
So that's so for in that time period, we saw the metals go up, dump from organs, and we saw them on the cleanup phase. So now we're going to see kind of the mineral and vitamin levels. Where did they end up? Are they back where they started, or are they a little bit better, or still a little bit worse? So it's great if you have a chance to go and get tested somewhere with the Oligoscan. It's just a lot of fun because it's just a new data set, and you can also just the more testing you have, the better, though. Okay, so
absolutely.
this is over a couple month period of all that. So you
So
can
this
see
is
that
yeah, May to July. Yeah. So
So you can see that like your phosphorus is actually significantly better. Your magnesium is better. That's about the same. Silicone's still a little bit lower, but potentially because you've been reducing the aluminum load. So as you're detoxing aluminum, that could be pushing out some silicone because both tests you had a decrease. And that's another thing, right? People are concerned about aluminum. This is 2 months on taking 30 grams of zeolite a day, and both times the aluminum went down. So it's not accumulating in tissue. Not saying it always does because it will go up as you're dumping aluminum, right? But it's like that would just continually go up in a straight line if zeolite was causing aluminum toxicity.
yeah,
All
because it
right.
went from yeah, that was a so what
Yeah,
percent?
it's lower. It's a
Yeah,
slight,
definitely. Yeah.
slight lower, but that will probably on the next test, that's going to pop up at some point. So go to the vitamins real quick if you can. Increase. Yeah. So overall, through this whole process, your vitamin D is like a couple percent lower, but the other ones are probably 5-10% higher. Vitamin A higher, vitamin B6, B9, B12, and E and C. They're all higher. So a lot of your antioxidant vitamins are higher, probably because it was reducing some sort of stressor on the body, and your body didn't have to use up as many vitamins. So even during this process of getting out a pretty significant amount of toxic metals, including mercury, lead, cadmium, it still was able to see you saw an increase in tissue saturation of vitamins during that period. Pretty
Incredible.
cool.
And before you were saying it's not necessarily about high or low, but when it comes to the vitamins, like if one is low, can it help to supplement temporarily? I mean, is it just supporting the body?
Yeah,
Or
with the vitamins, the higher the better. Because I do kind of see it as a reserve. Like the more reserves you have, if you have a stressor and you have to, your blood has to pull from these tissues, the more the better, because then it could prevent you from getting sick or having something else. That's one thought. Just the higher the better. But yeah, let's say you do have super low vitamin C and vitamin E. It goes back to the two approaches. One, you can reduce the stressor that's making your body use up those antioxidant resources. And two, you can directly supplement with them or both.
yeah,
Right. So, and that's what you're doing basically is both, right? You're
yeah,
taking vitamin C, you're taking vitamin E, and you're taking the zeolite, and among other things to reduce oxidative stress, and you're seeing an increase. So it's just both approaches.
awesome. And you said the ratios you don't put much weight into on the Lego scan.
I just had not that I just haven't looked into it enough,
Okay. Yeah, because
but
I know the HTMA, the
it's
sodium
different.
potassium, that's like a sign of chronic stress, right?
Yeah, it's everyone, basically everyone is low, that ratio here. So it's just different. It doesn't
Yep.
correlate to the HTMA. That's why some
Mm,
HTMA practitioners don't like using this test because the ratios aren't like correlated.
interesting.
So
Yeah.
I think it's just because it's different in the tissue.
Yeah.
Maybe it's more stable. I don't know,
Yeah.
but yours are
Interesting.
pretty balanced. A lot of people's are pretty messed up, like potassium, sodium. A lot of people's are in the red, like
Wow.
really jacked up. Yours are looking pretty good.
Awesome.
All right, is that all of them, or do you have another one after?
I have a bunch. So
Maybe just go over a couple
let's see.
more. See if we continue the cycle.
Yeah, so that was what dates? This was yeah, so this
Joe,
was the first one to July. Should I do the first one further out? The
no,
first
let's
one
do let's
or
do July 2nd
okay,
to
and then
the one after that.
I have August 3rd. Would that be good?
Perfect.
So almost a
Yeah,
month
perfect.
later. Okay.
Yeah. So that way, so we've looked at June to like a month later, or May, sorry. So we had the first test, May to June, you had the metals rising like 20%. So you got the dump, a little bit of decrease in minerals and vitamins from the stress of the detox. And then the following month, you had the body cleaning up where the metals were dropping, but then the vitamins and minerals rebounded. And now we're going to look at what happened the following month from there to see if the cycle continues. So let's go to metals first. So now you have actually a decrease in most of them, which is interesting. So now you're getting like a stronger, because it was kind of back to baseline before, and now instead of going up, they're going down. So it's like, let's see what percentage is, because it's just interesting. So let's look at like aluminum is down. And this is the third month in a row aluminum's down. So eventually it's probably going to pop up, but it's down 15%. Let's see, silver.
Yeah, and even thallium, thorium, and platinum, which were pretty stable, those are going down, right?
So, yeah,
So,
silver's down 16%. Arsenic. So now we're kind of in that range again. Maybe we're more towards the 15% divided by 15%. Yeah, arsenic's down 15%. So now it's like everything's being detoxed at 15%. It's just cool. But so first this is actually a really good case study. So first we had the levels going up, they're coming out of organs into general tissue. Second test, they were kind of going down. So, but they were like at baseline. But now we're getting a decrease in general tissue, like 15%. So you can kind of see the range where in the Oligoscan, your body's comfortable with like negative 15% in tissue up to positive 20. And that's probably going to be the range it's always in. It's just what phase of detox, like where the body moving the metals. So most of these are down: aluminum, antimony, silver, arsenic, barium, beryllium, bismuth, cadmium, mercury, nickel, platinum, thallium, thorium are all down. So 13 metals are down, but now we have lead and gadolinium going back up. So maybe the body is selectively saying, okay, we're cleaning up the 13, but we have enough energy to detox the lead and the gadolinium. And those are going up. So sometimes they're inverted, where the body chooses a couple to detox and then it cleans up the rest. And then a lot of times, eventually, it gets where they're all in sync, where they all go up and down. But what are the vitamins? So I'm assuming the vitamins and minerals got better. Yeah. So your vitamins mostly got even better than they were before. And that's probably because the tissue is getting cleaned up even more. So there's less metals in the tissue. So there's more room for the vitamins and even your vitamin D, right? Which is interesting.
yeah.
And I see
Wow.
that a lot. Vitamin D levels increase in the tissue as the levels of the metals go down. And then let's go to the minerals real quick. And silicone got better now. So that got quite a bit better. Magnesium got worse. So it's just they fluctuate a little bit. But overall, this is actually a positive. Like the chromium bounced back. So not significant changes, like nothing alarming at all. Like the blood levels would be unaffected completely, right? That's the thing. It's the blood levels are not being affected. These are the reserves being affected a little bit.
And
So pretty cool.
does your philosophy, like going back to vitamin supplementation, like I actually have some pretty innovative products I've found over the last 14 years. Like one of them's liquid silica that you keep in the fridge, living silica that you just take, shots from the bottle, and it's a really unique form of silica.
Is that like an orthosilicic acid?
Yeah, it's a really long, complex name. um,
Like
but
a biosil type of
even beyond, it was
beyond that one.
invented
Okay.
by a guy in Spain, I believe,
Okay.
years ago.
Yeah, and some of that
Yeah,
can be really helpful just because we're not getting it in the water. And I mean, there's studies showing that people that drink silicone enhanced water have an increased detox of aluminum because those are antagonists, right? So that's one theory is why we have a lot of aluminum, besides all the other many reasons, is that we have a deficiency in the silicone, so our bodies are naturally accumulating aluminum because we don't have the silicone to counteract it. So taking silicone is a very common agent to detox aluminum. So that's
yeah,
one thing. So they
yeah,
they fluctuate, but
yeah. It's monomethyl silanetriol. Yeah, it's a
okay.
fascinating form.
Say that 5 times fast though.
And my lithium too, I've seen consistently trending on the lower end, and I have some genetic mutations that
Yeah.
increase my need for lithium. So I take a small amount of lithium orotate
Okay.
pretty consistently. But that's
Yeah.
been interesting to see on my Lego scan
It
more on the lower.
so it is interesting because sometimes when you take the supplements you're deficient in, what the first thing most people want to get this test and they say, "Oh, I'm deficient in chromium. I need a chromium supplement," or whatever. It's just direct, but really that can be helpful. But once again, we go back to the second step of why is your body deficient in that? Let's really go to the underlying cause. And maybe the body will naturally start balancing these things on their own as the metals and other things leave. So two-step approach. I think the direct supplementation has its place in addition to the detox and whatever else you need to do to get things to balance on their own. Even emotional disturbances, that kind of thing will mess up your minerals, right? Minerals, the body kind of puts minerals in certain levels, I think, based on your level of health. Like when I was doing the case studies, some of these people were just eating pizza, drinking pop, all this terrible stuff, but they were relatively healthy, like asymptomatic people, and their levels were just perfect on these minerals. And then you test the people that are eating 100% organic, taking all these supplements, doing incredible, and their levels are all messed up, but they have complex health challenges, right? So it's not always fair. It's not necessarily about what's coming in, the supplements and the diet. It's about what is your current level of, internal health. That's going to dictate a lot of times what your what your mineral levels is, which is it's just not fair, but it is what it is. Do you
Makes
want to do
sense. Yeah.
another one or two?
Yeah, I pulled up yeah, from the end of this, so off from August 3rd and then another month ahead
Perfect.
to actually the end. So this was actually almost 2 months
Okay.
we can do. And yeah, I have seen low iodine in everybody I've scanned at my house too, which is interesting.
Iodine is one of probably the hardest thing I've seen to move, the most
Wow.
difficult marker to move on this test. A lot of times people have super low and it's just really hard to get it up, even with iodine supplementation and other things. And whether that's from some sort of, chronic hormonal imbalance or whether it's from a chronic microbial infection where the body's producing extra or using iodine as an antiseptic, whether it's from thyroid dysfunction, I don't know what it is, but there's something there where it's a little bit tricky. So now here we go again with a decrease. And now we have that's
Yeah, lead was a massive.
like a 45% decrease, but we don't what probably happened because this was a 2 month test, probably in the month in between, those levels of metals probably went up and now they're back down.
I see.
That's probably what happened. Um, but maybe not. Maybe they just keep going down. I mean, it's kind of interesting. Yours just tend to keep going down. And maybe you just
What?
have less metals and organs than the rest of us.
Well, I don't know how many people are taking because I'm still on the 6 scoops a day since I've started. Because I'm just feeling great on it. So I'm on the 30 grams a day. And maybe I've missed a day here or there, but maybe I've missed 3 or 4 days since I've started. I've been really consistent with it. So,
Overall, I mean, and that's what I tell people is as long as you're seeing movement, that's what you want to see, right? Movement equals the body getting rid of metals. So whether the metals going up or down, they're either coming out of organs into tissue, preparing to leave the body, or they're leaving tissue and getting out of the body. So as long as you're getting some movement, which you clearly are, and pretty good amounts, you're detoxing. What you don't want is to test every month and nothing to move.
okay.
That would mean that you just it might still be helpful your protocol because you're on a binding protocol where you're removing the circulating toxicity and the stressors on the immune system. But what we're looking for is that deep level detox, and that's what we're seeing here. So this was interesting. Your vitamins tanked.
The B9. Yeah, I
Yeah.
noticed that. Yeah.
Yeah, so this was a huge, so maybe that's because you dumped so much lead here. Maybe, I mean,
Yeah.
or something else, maybe it was completely unrelated. Because your minerals, I think, were a little bit off too. Yeah, it definitely looked like something was going on. You definitely had some sort of inflammatory reaction because your zinc copper just went skyrocketed. I mean, things got a little bit off. So it might have been stress. It might have been
It could have been.
hidden infection, travel. I mean, there was definitely something that activated the immune system. Um, yeah. So it's another cool thing you can kind of see with it. I mean, your iodine actually improved a lot on this one.
And the fluoride had a
Went
wild
down.
swing.
Yeah. Yeah. And those are
That
correlated,
was,
right? Iodine, both in the halogen group, iodine
mhm.
and fluorine. So that decrease, that's going to improve. So they're connected. But yeah, there's definitely something going on over this
Yeah.
period. And, it, it's only a heavy metal and mineral test, a vitamin. It's like, it's not giving us all the
Yeah.
answers. We have to correlate it with a lot of things. But overall, I would say, especially since you weren't feeling worse, like I'm not worried about these slight fluctuations in vitamins and minerals because they always end up going to balance on their own because the body it's not like something that's just going in and continually making things worse. It's just the body is cycling in and out of different phases of detox. There's a little bit of stress, but not to the point where it's negatively impacting you really. And then it balances. So It's really
And
it's cool. I love looking at these tests.
when I interviewed Jeff, like with the minerals, he was saying you went almost like a DNA spiral, like a back and forth, because for people that are just listening, when you get the Oligoscan, it's like you look at the minerals and normal is on both sides, so it could be on left or the right, and it could be almost like a zigzag. Is that supposed to just keep zigzagging back and forth with a healthy person? Is that kind of the idea? Or,
I'm not sure. I don't. I've definitely heard him say that, and that's kind of a sign of a healthier person. But I don't really understand why. So yeah, I don't really know on that one. But
yeah,
you don't want them all to be lopsided. You don't want all of them to be on the low side or all of them on the high side.
okay,
And I mean, but like when they're high, it doesn't mean you have too much. It just means a lot of times you're either deficient in it and your body is storing it in the tissue because it needs more in the blood, or it's accumulating it for some other reason. So, like for zinc and copper here, it doesn't mean you have too much zinc. It actually might mean like a zinc supplement might be helpful in this situation,
okay,
right? That's a lot of practitioners will treat this as a zinc deficiency because it's building up in the tissue because of a deficiency. Really, I look at this probably as some sort of immune reaction where you see kind of this high copper zinc ratio when you have some sort of either acute or chronic stressor that's occurring. And then that'll just naturally balance on the next cycle of detox type of thing. So
makes sense. Yeah, it
pretty
definitely
cool.
takes a certain eye to read this because it is. I know the when I had shows on the Illegal Scan and sent people to their website, they didn't want everyone having a device because most people will probably interpret it as low, take the supplement, and just
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
base.
I mean,
Yeah.
eventually, I mean, this is I'm surprised no one's done it yet, but eventually this technology, it's simple technology, all right, spectrophotometry. I mean, eventually you're going to have like an Aura ring or some device that's going to be able to, give you these markers every single day in real time. And you're going to be able to just put it in, apps and AI and everything to just get incredible data. But for now, this is really the only company doing this, right? The Oligoscan. And it's just such a simple device and it's non-invasive and you get the results instantly. And it's relatively affordable. Most practitioners are charging between, $129 to $199 per test, right? Depending on where it's at and if it's coming with the consultation or not. So really reasonable. The only limitation is it has to be in person.
Yeah,
Other than
yeah,
that,
makes sense.
it's fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, super fascinating stuff. Yeah, I'm glad I had more of an understanding because it's really fun to scan. Like my friend Jared that's doing all the machine work, he's been a machine operator for 30 plus years. And I sorry if you listen to this, but he had the worst scan I've seen because all of his metals were off the charts because all the yeah, I don't know, brake dust and working with gas and diesel. I mean, his exposure was wild. And yeah, I didn't save his test, but it was off the chart. So it's because I was skeptical at first. I think when you introduced me to it, I thought it was BS until I got it myself, and then now I've been scanning people, and like you said, the repeatability of it is is really a testament to how efficacious and accurate it is.
It shows you how cool the device is in terms of repeatability and also how specific the body is in terms of what levels of metals it wants in the tissue at any given time. So it's a double whammy of how cool it is. But I do have a video on my site under the case studies page or the proof page. Scroll towards the bottom. There's a video called case detox cycling, and that's just one of a compilation of there's like a 3-minute short version and then a longer version with more case studies. But I go over a number of case studies showing this detox cycling phenomena where the metals go up and then they go back exactly to baseline up and baseline up and baseline. So if people want to kind of see that in action, that's on the proof page. It's kind of an interesting video for people. It just explains the importance of retesting,